Nature is made possible by public television stations, your gas company, and the gas industry, whose respect for nature and the environment is reflected in the underwriting of this series. America's gas industry provides 160 million people with natural gas energy all across the country. And by Siemens, a leader in electronics and electrical engineering, 27,000 employees, 47 manufacturing facilities. The name is Siemens.
Hi, I'm George Page for Nature. And here in Hawaii, there are more than 6,000 species of plants, animals, and insects found only in the Hawaiian Islands. In fact, Hawaii ranks #1 in the world for its number of native species, and that's because of its extreme isolation, 2,500 miles from the nearest continental landmass. Here, plants and animals simply evolved in their own special ways over millions of years without outside influences or disturbances, until about 1,300 years ago when man arrived, Hawaii's first settlers, the Polynesians. This time on Nature, we celebrate the flora and fauna of our 50th state, which Mark Twain called the loveliest fleet of islands that lies anchored in any ocean.
Hawaii was born from the fiery womb of the sea. Out of the dark underworld emerged the land, creatures, a string of islands. The steep slopes of Kauai, one of the islands in the great Hawaiian chain stretching 1,600 miles across the middle of the world's deepest ocean, the Pacific. These great volcanic mountains form the most isolated landmass in the world. The island of Hawaii is the tallest, most massive mountain on Earth, and it's still growing. The distance from this ice-capped summit to the seabed is more than 5 miles. On the neighboring island of Maui is the extinct crater Haleakala. According to legend, Pele, the Hawaiians' powerful goddess of fire, lived here before she traveled towards the sunrise in search of a new home. And this is where the fire goddess now resides, beneath Kilauea volcano. A lake of lava. Its surface has cooled and is crusted over. Jagged lines of fire divided into plates. Just as these surfaces move, the Hawaiian Islands move, together on great tectonic plates. Moving 4 inches a year to the northwest, the plates pass over a stationary hotspot, beneath the planet's crust, where the Earth's molten core rushes through, bursting into the deep sea, piling up to the surface, and finally emerging into the air. And that makes land, and so Hawaii grows. Hawaiian lava, called pahoehoe, is liquid, almost as fluid as water. And whenever there is a new surge from below, the lava lake wells up and breaks its banks, pouring molten stone down the mountainside like a fast-flowing river. The farther the lava flows from its wellspring, the cooler it becomes, getting slower and more sluggish. Trapped gases explode to freedom. Pele's curses, the Hawaiians believed. A provider and a destroyer. To the Hawaiians, Pele was a fearsome and untamable spirit with extraordinary powers over the living and the dead. They cowered beneath her wrath. According to legend, as she leaves a simmering island behind her, Pele explodes into each new one, creating it, laying it waste, enlarging it, letting it live. Tree molds, the stark remains of a once thriving forest. Or, in Hawaiian legend, the remains of people who had angered Pele. Vegetation soon recolonizes the cooled lava flows, providing food for the nene goose of the volcanoes, which lives here and nowhere else on Earth. In this primeval landscape, destruction is a constant threat. Just beneath the surface, a labyrinth of tubes and caverns permeate the islands. Ancient Hawaiians sheltered here. But these caves were sculpted by lava. The ridges were formed from lava that cooled and stuck to the walls. The floor is lava that simply stopped flowing. The entire cavern systems were once great pipes of rushing magma. The people buried their dead here and left records of their chiefs, gods, and ancestors engraved on the walls. On Hawaii, the tubes are still being created. As Pahoehoe flows, the molten rock cools and hardens on the outside. This insulates the inside and allows the central lava to keep rushing through, fast and hot at temperatures of 2,000 degrees. At first, the surface of the piping is brittle and often breaks, making a skylight and allowing a privileged view of world creation at work. Above the network of tubes and connected to them are water-filled depressions. Half the water is fresh rain from the mountainside, half seawater that seeps in on the tide through lava tubes and fissures. These ponds have their own exclusive wildlife, dominated by tiny shrimps, which teem in the millions, a subterranean community thriving under the volcano. The edges of these ponds are a favorite haunt of Hawaiian stilts, which come here to reap the rich harvest of shrimp. There are now only 2,000 of the birds left living in the wild. Like most Hawaiian birds, their future is threatened as more of their habitat is invaded by man. The wandering tattler is also a regular visitor to the lava ponds. Like the original Hawaiian voyagers, the tattler is a great traveler and navigator. Once a tattler banded 3,000 miles away in Alaska was found 4 days later in the northwestern Hawaiian Islands. Many ponds and flooded lava tubes are tidal and lead directly to the surrounding ocean, whose salty fingers penetrate deep beneath the volcano. Nearer the sea, the increasing saltiness of the water in the tunnels allows marine creatures like these soldier fish to find a home. The Hawaiians had many gods and many stories about the origins of their people and the creatures which shared their world. One account of the creation of the animal world begins on the reef, where corals became worms, which turned into fish, and from which eventually arose man. The edges of Hawaii's islands are steep and constantly swept by powerful waves. Incredibly, some fish spend their entire lives in the surge zone of these turbulent cliffs. The reef is the other half of island making. The volcano goddess lays the lava and corals build upon it. Plankton and other creatures eventually come to the reef from the surrounding ocean, settle, and multiply. Long before modern science became interested in the function of a species, legend says the god Kumuhonua gathered all the fishes of the reef together and gave each a duty. He distinguished them with colors and markings. To the Moorish idol, he gave bold stripes. To the saddleback wrasse, blue, red, and green. To the yellow-tailed wrasse, a flashy tail. The Achilles tang received bright orange spots. And when the brilliant colors were all assigned, the fish that still had no marks, he sprinkled with ashes. And one he made the master of disguise, Paki'i, the flatfish. O'ili uvivi, the filefish, in its back-to-front posture, perhaps a courting display. As twilight approaches, many reef fish come together in preparation for spawning. It's a time of intense social activity and of danger. Puhipaka, the moray eel. Hawaiian fishermen find it difficult and dangerous to drag him out of his hole. He will defend himself aggressively, taking a finger or toe if he can. Wherever the eel lives, they say, there will be few small fish around. But amazingly, some have tricks up their sleeves. The pufferfish lives up to its name. In the Hawaiian creation story, there is one animal in the ocean that in its world is an evolutionary climax. Kamaloa, the octopus. Octopuses have complex brains and a wit that no mere puhipaka can match. The octopus wants the eel's lair. Out of reach of the eel, under a lava ledge, a male sergeant major fish tends and guards eggs. A filefish is attracted to the banquet of purple caviar. The sergeant major takes his sentry duties seriously. His diligence is more than a match for the persistent filefish. Several females have laid eggs on the rock, and he is father to them all. But the defender cannot be everywhere at once, and the eggs have many predators. A shrimp sneaks in to gorge itself on the free feast. The reason so many eggs hatch is due to the unflagging devotion of the male sergeant major. He must stand guard against all comers. Many of the reef's residents are at their most active in the period just before darkness. The octopus, like many other reef dwellers, mates in this twilight hour. The male has a special tentacle with which he inserts a packet of sperm into an opening in the female's body. During mating, she can swim along, pulling the obliging male with her. Sometimes the tip of the male's arm breaks off, and for many years scientists thought they were finding some kind of parasitic worm inside female octopuses. Night approaches. Other fish gather to spawn. Unlike the octopus's direct coupling or the sergeant major's stern husbandry, fish like the yellow tang have a mating method that relies on a scattered buckshot approach. First, they make their way to a traditional spawning place deep at the reef's edge, where offshore currents are strong. At the spawning site, their agitation increases until one by one, the females begin to dart towards the surface, releasing a puff of eggs. Instantly, males follow and shoot their sperm over the eggs. The fertilized eggs, unattended, drift out to sea and become part of the strange and beautiful world of plankton. At night, the fragile planktonic creatures migrate to surface waters. In the moonlight, these translucent specters pulse and glow like alien spaceships. A gelatinous ctenophore dangles its long tentacles as lures to catch tiny larval fish. The movements of this drifting community are controlled by the ocean currents. Many of these delicate animals have floated vast distances before reaching the underwater slopes of the great Hawaiian volcanoes. Indeed, this is how the fish and coral that built the Hawaiian reefs arrived here originally. A successful catch for one ghostly angler. A larval moray eel. One result of a tang spawning at the reef's edge. This young fish will soon leave the plankton and settle on the reef. A seahorse hitches a ride on a raft of seaweed. Sharing this floating platform is a paper nautilus, or argonaut, one of the loveliest and rarest members of the octopus family. The fragile shell secreted by the female acts as a nursery. The eggs are kept inside and tended until they hatch. When ready, the minute hatchlings are gently ejected into the sea to ride with the rest of the plankton. For this manta ray, more than 10 feet wide, the plankton clouds are like living soup, and it flies through them, scooping in huge mouthfuls. Indeed, the Hawaiians named the ray lupe, the same as the word for kite. The volcano forms a base for the reef and the life around it. But that which Pele creates, she reserves the right to destroy. Now and then, under her lava pool on Kilauea, Pele gives an extra push, and the river of lava reaches the sea. In Hawaii, the business of world creation and destruction go hand in hand. As night follows day, decade after decade, millennium after millennium, the lava flows burn and ravage, yet also build up the land. The trees have evolved in the precarious shadow of the volcano. The devastation will soon be replaced by a new forest. The elemental struggle between fire and water has been fought wherever volcanoes exist near the sea. In this cataclysmic battle, there are no victors. Any temporary gains made by the volcano are eventually swamped by the sea in a never-ending cycle of violent upheaval and quiescence. As the vanguard of lava pushes into the sea, extending the island, it piles up on itself and crusts over. The surface calm camouflages the incredible drama being performed below the waves. Each fire-filled lava bomb explodes as the superheated gases in its core encounter the cold and suffocating liquid which tries to drown it. Huge areas of reef are killed, but this virgin substrate will be prime real estate for the drifting planktonic settlers. Fish that fled for the duration of the catastrophe return to find an underwater desert where only oases of coral remain. The surge zone has changed. A once thriving community is buried by lava rubble. In the wave action, the boulders crumble into pebbles, and the pebbles into sand. Ashore, the volcanic sand is piled up by the surf, forming black beaches. Over long periods of time, new land has risen from the ocean and made a chain of isolated worlds. The island of Kauai stands at the western end of the stretch of high islands. It's 5 million years old, 10 times as old as the big island of Hawaii. It has been a long time since Pele lived here, and Kauai's volcanoes have long been dead. In the meantime, these islands have come to support unique rainforests, home to some of the world's rarest and most unusual birds. The crested honeycreeper, only a few hundred are known to exist, feeding on nectar in remote valleys of Maui. The moisture-laden trade winds bring rain to the mountain peaks, nourishing the forest. Rainfall in Kauai's Alakai Swamp is some 50 feet a year. It's the wettest land on the planet. The lava, which brought destruction, has built the island. The water, which brings life, wears it away. Over millions of years, the older hillsides become steep and gullied with razor-sharp ridges, great valleys, and canyons. Over Kauai, far-ranging frigate birds pass westward on a journey of hundreds of miles back to their nesting grounds. La Perouse's pinnacle. One day, even the big island of Hawaii will be worn down to a stump like this, eventually vanishing beneath the sea. At French frigate Shoals, the original high island has eroded and sunk below the surface, its edges outlined by a growing coral reef. It's 10 million years old and now has moved 800 miles away from the hotspot. For 1,000 miles westward, a chain of atolls dot the Pacific, each one perched on a sunken volcano. Laysan Island. It's surrounded by rich sea life and is a breeding site for vast numbers of seabirds. Frigate birds are aerial pirates and will even molest chicks of their own kind. Fairy terns nest in a way which is as uncomplicated as their beauty. They don't use a nest at all. The egg is laid on the fork of a bare branch, and when the chick hatches, it perches, waiting patiently to be fed until it's ready to fly in about 40 days. The chick has a gargantuan appetite, and this is just one of many meals a day. The most abundant birds on Laysan, and perhaps the commonest in the entire Pacific, are the sooty terns. Around 1 million of them breed here. With these huge numbers, squabbles over space and mates are inevitable. Mating is not always a delicate affair. A female without a mate to protect her can be overwhelmed by an unruly mob of suitors. The sooty-turned chick hatches from an egg laid on the bare ground. Its eggshell is tough, like those of many shorebirds, to protect it out in the open. It may take the hatchling, even with outside help, days to break out. Most seabird chicks are well developed when they hatch and can move if they have to, but they still need protection from aerial attackers. But life in a crowded seabird colony is mainly a matter of watching out for the neighbors, including the benign but heavy-footed albatross. Some of the local residents are not as innocent as they look. The Laysan finch, one of the Hawaiian honey creepers, has come a long way from its ancestors, which fed on nectar. Its beak is sturdy and built for cracking seeds. But evolution has had a long time to work on the behavior of this remote population, and the finch has developed a more sinister talent. Like miniature vultures, they scavenge any broken seabird eggs. This finch has turned carnivorous, fulfilling a role usually occupied by much larger birds. A tern, injured in a fight, may die. The finches will wait. They eat the carcasses of dead birds. An unattended egg soon attracts finches, which can easily puncture the shell with their tough beaks. Too late, the parent returns to confront the determined pack of raiders. Clumsy on the ground, the red-tailed tropic bird is an elegant flyer. Tropic bird pairs perform an acrobatic courtship display. Both birds fly in backward loops, cartwheeling in the air. These birds fly over vast distances, and legend says they helped lead those other skillful navigators, the Polynesians, to discover Hawaii in the 10th century. Ashore, tropic birds like to sit tight, but another resident has evolved habits to take advantage of the particular abundance here. The Laysan teal feeds on the flies that carpet the shore of the duck's only habitat, Laysan Lagoon. Their technique is to stamp through the swarm, stirring them up, and then snap at random, snatching a meal of buzzing bodies. In 1911, only 6 teals remained. Now protected, the population has built up to an estimated 300. But it is still one of the rarest ducks in the world. The Laysan albatross is a far-flying migrant that returns here each year to mate or to practice mating. Pairs have been known to court without actually mating for 5 years. Whenever Kane, the principal Hawaiian god, came to Earth, it was as an albatross. The monk seal, another Hawaiian animal that was almost wiped out by hunters and habitat loss, has been brought back from the verge of extinction. The seals spend much of their time at sea feeding. When they come ashore, it's to sleep or to fight. These males are battling for the favors of a female who lies dozing on the beach. Though its numbers are slowly increasing, there are only about 1,000 Hawaiian monk seals in the wild. Sensitive to the presence of people, they require remote, uninhabited areas. But such isolation is becoming harder to find. Of the world's 2 other monk seal species, the Mediterranean population is down to a few hundred, and the Caribbean seal is now extinct. With recovery efforts underway, the seals now have only one creature to fear. These are all pregnant gray reef sharks. Each year, masses of these sharks come together in the shallows off the low islands. They are ready to give birth to their live-born offspring. But why they gather like this remains a mystery. Of all the images in Hawaiian legend, only the volcano is more powerful than the shark. To the early Hawaiians, the shark, like the volcano, was a power of both destruction and new life. The shark was a symbol of fertility. A barren woman who was visited in a dream by one would give birth to a child with magical properties. The shark is also the final repository for the soul, the ultimate incarnation. The shark was Pele's brother, Kamoho Ali'i, who keeps the water of life and lives at the far eastern edge of the world, where the sun rises. It was Kamoho Ali'i who gave Pele the power to escape from the goddess of the sea. She is still escaping. East of the island of Hawaii and still 3,000 feet under the water, a new island is emerging. Lo'ihi, the latest outpouring through the hot spot from the center of the earth. One day, Lo'ihi will be a great island, a new world, and Pele will live here and throw fire, destroy and build, lay waste, and bring new life.
In a single film, we could not possibly do justice to Hawaii as one of America's and the world's greatest natural treasures, or to the appalling rate of species extinction that's occurring here. We'll come back to Hawaii in the future to tell more of the story. In the meantime, let's hope the terribly important efforts of the Nature Conservancy and others to save Hawaii's natural bounty for future generations are successful. I'm George Page for Nature.
Nature is made possible by public television stations, by Siemens, a leader in high-technology electronics and electrical engineering. Nationwide, 27,000 Americans in 400 locations. The name is Siemens. And by your gas company and America's gas industry, developing ways to use gas more efficiently for more than 160 million people across America.